Hi everyone, welcome. This is Rebecca Snow. I am owner and mentor at the Nutrition Herbal Collective. And today we're talking about collaborating with medical doctors, which is something that people do get nervous about doing. Let me go ahead and share my slideshow here. I talk to interns about this all the time, and people do get nervous about talking to doctors. So I thought this is a great topic to just educate people about, to allay fears, kind of break it down, make it simpler so that it doesn't seem like it's such a scary proposition. Not everyone feels scared about this proposition, but I would say about 50% of the interns that I work with have some fears about reaching out to medical doctors for various reasons. So I have a few tips to share with you to make it simpler. So here are my 5 tips for having successful conversations with doctors. Number 1, stay in your lane. Number 2, know your audience. Number 3, remember doctors are people too. 4, be clear and specific about your request. And 5, each client you see is a networking opportunity. So let's take these one at a time. First off, stay in your lane. You are not expected to be an expert in medicine. It's not our scope. So don't act like an expert in medicine. A lot of people are nervous about talking to doctors because they feel like they don't know all the answers to how to review every single lab that there is. They don't know all the different medical diagnoses. They don't know all the different medications. We're not expected to know all that because our training is not in medicine. Our training is in nutrition. And honestly, what we're often promoting in a collaboration with doctors is our expertise in nutrition and food. So don't feel like you have to be an expert in lab assessment, in medical diagnoses, nutrient-drug interactions, or any other topics that are still part of your learning curve or your growing edge. Those are areas that you'll continue to grow in as you develop your practice as a professional nutritionist. What you can focus on is what you do best, and that's food. This is what's most appealing to doctors that we collaborate with. This is what they often want to learn about. And it helps us really stay in our lane, stay in the areas that you feel really strong with. So if you are very good at coaching, emphasize that. If you are very good with behavior modification, emphasize that. If you're really good with helping clients to read labels, shop at grocery stores, do pantry rehabs, maybe convert grandmother's favorite lasagna recipe to a healthier version, focus on those tools. Also, make sure you're really clear with anyone you develop a relationship with about your scope, your title, and the stage that you're in certification and licensure. So people that you talk to in the medical profession are not going to be as aware as we are. Sometimes we're not even fully aware of all the different state licensing laws when it comes to nutrition because it varies state to state. And it's not the same way with other health professions. There might be some state to state variation, but I think that nutrition is somewhat unique in that I, Rebecca, have full scope of practice here in Maryland, but if I moved to, let's say, Alabama, I would not. So, because it's a red state. So sometimes you have to educate your audience about who you are. In Maryland, I could really apply for a job that's advertised for a registered dietitian as long as it was within my scope. Some jobs really aren't within my scope because I'm not trained in hospital nutrition, but a job that's focusing on community education or general clinical nutrition that I could definitely apply for. So I would sometimes have to, if I'm talking to a doctor about a potential job or a collaboration, I would need to educate them about these topics. And if you're an intern, you want to be clear that you are if you're an intern in a green state, you have full scope of practice in that state to practice nutrition, most likely. But you do want to be clear about the fact that you might be working with a supervisor and you're on your way to getting board certified. Tip number 2 is to know your audience. So before you enter a potential partnership or collaboration with another professional, do some background research. Look at their website, look at their Google reviews or Yelp reviews, check out their affiliations, their training, who's on their medical team, and what's their dietary philosophy. So you're not going to be pitching yourself as a nutritionist to join a practice when there's already a nutritionist on staff. If there's a health coach on staff, they might not have space for a nutritionist too. Looking at their training, you'll see if they have additional training in functional medicine, integrative medicine, or if they're more conventionally trained. You can see if they do other modalities in addition to medicine. Maybe they do acupuncture or some other modality. And then you can also check out their dietary philosophy. Are they in alignment with you? So, maybe they're recommending keto for all their clients, or maybe they're recommending veganism to all their clients. And that's not something that sits well with you. So it may not be an ideal partnership. So do your background research. You can find a lot on Google and keep notes so you have that handy. There are many different types of doctors that you can collaborate with, and it's important to kind of have an understanding of what those are. So an internist or a family practitioner is your general primary care doctor. Then there are naturopathic doctors. Now a naturopath is different from a naturopathic doctor. So an ND degree, and NDs have different scopes in different states. So some states, a naturopathic doctor can practice medicine, and in other states they cannot. So it's good to have a bit of an understanding of that. There are naturopath schools that are not at the same level of, say, Bastyr University's naturopathic doctorate, which would allow people to allow practitioners to practice medicine in certain states. There's osteopathic doctors. There are dozens, if not up to 30 different osteopathic medicine schools. And osteopathy, this kind of training, it's a full medical training. It's a more whole medicine approach to human health. So osteopathic doctors tend to be more holistic than conventionally trained medical doctors, and they can specialize in any specialty: cardiology, digestive health. Some osteopathic doctors practice physical manipulation or do something similar to chiropractic, but it's not chiropractic. It's different, and it's a different modality. Obviously, I'm kind of butchering this because these are not my specialties, and this is not my training, but I know bits and pieces about it. When you're looking to collaborate with doctors, or you're looking for doctors to collaborate with, it's helpful to know the different terms so you can do a really thorough review of who's in your area, because you want to check out. Now we practice virtually, so your geographic area may not be as relevant. But if you are working very locally, you do want to figure out who's local to me, and and what's their training, what's their specialty. And of course, there's many specialties for medicine. And this might really be important if you have a niche, so that you can, figure out which doctors are working in your niche. If you specialize in obesity, then you probably want to collaborate with endocrinologists, cardiologists, as well as internists and primary care doctors. And then there are doctors with specialists such as gastroenterologists or cardiologists, as well as internists, that may also have training in functional medicine, integrative medicine. There's a couple search terms: integrative, functional, and holistic are probably the three biggest. And that would be kind of an additional training. So if somebody has that functional medicine training, they're going to be doing a much different style of practice potentially than a conventional doctor or counterpart. And the other term is concierge doctor, which you may or may not be familiar with. A concierge doctor charges their clients a cash fee yearly. They take a limited number of clients, and they may be more conventionally trained. They may be trained in functional medicine, integrative medicine. They tend to provide a slightly higher level of care and may be more available for collaboration with other practitioners that are working with the client, as well as the client themselves. Now, I like this Venn diagram that's here because when you're talking about a collaboration with a doctor, you do want to think about scope and overlap. And there are certain areas of a nutritionist's work and a certain area of the doctor's work that don't overlap, but there's always exceptions to the rule. I definitely know doctors that do a lot of behavior change, a lot of coaching, that even help with meal planning. That's not typical. Typically, I would say that these are the areas that don't overlap, that the nutritionist is really doing a lot of nitty-gritty food and dietary behavior change and recommendations, coaching, meal planning, and really acts as a translator for that therapeutic diet into action, and gets down to a level of specific food recommendations that the doctor wouldn't. The doctor's scope, obviously there's many things that a doctor does that we don't do, such as differential diagnosis, various medical testing, surgery, lab testing, treatment plans, prescription medicine, all of that we don't do. But in the center of the Venn diagram where we overlap, those circles can sometimes overlap really a lot and sometimes to a lesser degree. What I find is that with conventional doctors, those circles overlap less. So generally conventional doctors, particularly who are working in an insurance model, have less time with clients, have less time to do behavior change, lifestyle coaching, dietary modifications, etc. And they might rely more on a nutritionist to do more with the client in those realms. Whereas a naturopathic doctor is often not in an insurance model, is a cash practice, is trained much more significantly in nutrition than a conventional doctor, and may spend a significant amount of time doing nutrition with their client. So that overlap with a naturopathic doctor might be much greater, and there's less areas that the naturopath doesn't cover. So these are important questions to ask yourself because, with a conventional, with a doctor who has functional medicine training, they may be doing all of the supplement recommendations. So there may be very little space for you to do supplement recommendations. That might not be a good partnership for you to be doing supplement recommendations. Whereas with a conventional cardiologist, who's very collaborative and open to you making supplement recommendations, then that might be part of what you're doing with the client. So those are some food for thought to know your audience, know who you're collaborating with, and what that's going to look like for each of you. Now, when it comes to approachability, it's important to remember that doctors are people too. They have families, they eat, they're busy, they're trying to juggle work-life balance just like you are. I mean, think about going through grad school, trying to hold down a job, go through grad school, get your CNS credential, feed your family, feed yourself, stay healthy, do self-care, exercise, meditate. It's hard to stay balanced. And with what's going on in the world with the pandemic, life is very stressful for medical professionals. So keep that in mind, that this is just a conversation between two people. And a lot of times doctors are confused what to eat too. So, and often for most conventionally trained doctors, they've had very little education about nutrition in their medical training. So stay in your lane, stay focused on nutrition, doctors really want that information. They want their clients to have that information. I have never met a doctor who is not interested in their clients learning more about nutrition, more about healthy lifestyle, behavior change, exercise, physical activity, general wellness behaviors. I have met doctors that are not supportive of dietary supplements or herbs. That's definitely the minority. But when it comes to nutrition, there's almost always a huge interest in the topic. Um, so when you stay in your lane and you focus on your expertise, you'll find that doctors are very curious to learn more about nutrition, both for themselves and for their clients. If you end up doing a lunch and learn, then, I always say whenever you do a presentation, whether it's for a professional or a layperson, appeal to the head, the heart, and the stomach. So offer good evidence-based information about your topic, appeal to people's hearts when it comes to juggling work-life balance, inspirational stories from other clients, and also appeal to their stomachs with some food sample, if it's okay and there's no allergies in the office. Provide some culinary experience so people can connect on that level too. Now, whatever your collaboration or conversation is about, just be clear and specific about what your request is. Why are you reaching out to this health professional? Are you looking to work in their practice? You want to be a contractor in their business? Do you want to develop a partnership like that to develop an educational program for their clients? Are you looking for cross referrals? Is this a practitioner that you really see yourself referring to and you want them to refer to you? Do you need clarification about a client's medical program or lab test or diagnosis, and there's something you're lacking clarity on? Are you making a request for them to run labs for a client, or are you looking for a shadowing opportunity to get more CNS SPE hours? Last but not least, each client is a networking opportunity. So whatever practitioners that client is seeing, you can develop relationships with those practitioners for the sake of the client and for the sake of your own growth as a practitioner, to expand your network of practitioners that you refer to. I keep a Google Doc of all the practitioners that clients have told me they've had amazing experiences with, so that when I need to refer to an ophthalmologist or a reflexologist, I've got a list of practitioners there that I can pull from. Some of them I have relationships with myself. Some of them it's just secondhand from a client. And then I always kind of tell a client that if I'm giving them a name. But each client is a networking opportunity. And some of the reasons that I reach out to so there's different reasons we reach out to doctors, as we said in the previous slide. And if you're looking to kind of develop a partnership where you're working in their office, that's kind of a whole nother conversation. But just for each client that you see, there's an opportunity to develop a networking relationship with that client's practitioners. And some of the main reasons that I reach out to practitioners on a regular basis is, one, to request labs. So when I'm working with a client and there's some labs we want, and they feel like they're going to see their doctor, or their doctor would be very willing to run some labs. I have the sample form letter that was actually created by one of our previous interns, Dawn Shanone, who practices in Illinois. It's an awesome form letter. And now I use it all the time. I actually have it set up as a charting note in Healthy. So I can just fax it over to the doctor. And that's super helpful. I am frequently sharing soap notes and recommendations with the client's permission. Always ask the client's permission in writing to share notes with another practitioner. And I always do this when a client is referred by a doctor. I also do this when they have a doctor overseeing them through a cancer treatment plan. So whenever I'm working with somebody who's under an active cancer treatment plan, I would send over SOAP notes, which include recommendations to their oncologist for review and approval of any recommendations I'm making, particularly around supplements or herbs. I recently had this come up with a client. I'll tell you that story in a moment. And sometimes the doctor just wants to see the recommendations, like the meal plan or the specific recommendations. Sometimes the doctor wants to see the whole SOAP note. And it's a great reason to keep your SOAP notes up to date, cleaned up, and well written, so you can share those notes with other practitioners. And the last main reason that I reach out to doctors is to ask a question about a medical plan or a diagnosis when I need clarification about what's going on with the client. One example is I had a client with active AIDS. She also had some dementia, signs of mild to moderate dementia, and very low sodium on her labs. And that was a differential diagnosis situation where, like, that was beyond me. I needed to get the doctor's input there because it was unclear to me what the causative factor of the dementia was. And so the doctor was super helpful in explaining to me his thoughts on what was triggering that it had more to do with the active AIDS and less to do with the low sodium on the blood work. We still worked to improve her sodium levels, though, because certainly that can be a trigger for cognitive decline. And the last story I'll tell is just about one client that I reached out to their doctor some 15 years ago. I had a client with cardiac disease, and there was very little that the doctor had recommended because of the unique circumstances for that client. And I recommended some herbs and wanted the doctor's approval. I sent over the SOAP note. And for at least 10 years, that cardiologist encouraged that client to continue taking their herbs for their particular cardiac illness. I only knew that. I saw the client for a couple years, but they fell off my radar, came back recently. I find out that the cardiologist is a huge fan of the herbs that I had recommended years ago and had been encouraging them to continue them, which just amazed me. And then this client went on to develop some liver disease and had a new doctor who suggested getting off all the supplements. But the cardiologist said to that doctor, please collaborate with the nutritionist herbalist because, you know, she's been helpful in the past. So the new doctor said, well, have her send the notes and we'll see, you know, what I feel like is reasonable. So after seeing this client, you know, after a long hiatus, we did a reevaluation. I made some recommendations. And what I do is I send my SOAP note with a cover letter. The fat in healthy, I have my SOAP notes. I can easily fax them over to the doctor and I can put a cover letter on the fax cover page. Just pulling out the data that I think is most relevant. I want you to know X, Y, and Z. I'd love to hear back from you, get your feedback, et cetera, et cetera. So the doctor sent me a very nice email and he supported all the supplement recommendations. I'm always very thorough with my research, and I'll even pull out references in the SOAP note that I'm sending over with any supplement recommendations, because I want to make sure that if the doctor isn't familiar with a supplement, in cases like this where there's some question about whether or not it's okay for a client to be taking something, I always try and include some references so the doctor can look those up for more information if they have questions about that. So I would say that in general, I've almost never had a bad experience. I mean, I have had a few, but nothing horrible. And in general, like, it's mostly been a really positive experience networking with other practitioners, with doctors. For my clients, we both usually learn a lot. I would say that the most important thing is to always stay curious. Seek to understand, then to be understood. It's the fifth habit of highly effective people. And whenever you enter into a conversation, try not to go with too many preconceived notions, but go with an open mind and curiosity so you can learn more as a practitioner. Well, thanks for listening. It's been great talking to you all, and have a great day. You can check us out, the Nutrition Herbal Collective, online, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.